could a secret lullaby, sung by three orphaned girls on a bustling Miami street, hold the key to a truth buried beneath years of grief and silence? In their voices, a broken man hears echoes of a love he thought he lost forever, and a chance at redemption he never saw coming. This is a story of loss, mystery, and an unexpected journey toward hope. If stories like this that reveal the truth captivate you, please hit the like button, share where you're watching from in the comments. We'd love to connect with our amazing community around the world. And don't forget to smash the subscribe button for more. Now let's begin this journey together. The Miami morning sun reflected off the midnight blue hood of James Richardson's 1969 Corvette as he drove through the busy downtown traffic. At 42, James had built a fortune in real estate development, but success felt empty in the vast silence of his penthouse apartment. For long years since the car crash that took his wife Sarah's life, leaving him with nothing but memories and pain that never went away. The police report was clear: brake failure on a stormy October night. Sarah's body was so badly hurt that they needed dental records to identify her. James had buried an empty shell while his heart remained trapped in that twisted metal. His phone buzzed with another business call, but James ignored it. Nothing mattered anymore. Not the profit reports, not the new buildings, not the awards from the Miami Business Journal naming him Businessman of the Year. Money couldn't fill the hole where his soulmate used to be. As he stopped at the red light on Ocean Drive, something amazing caught his attention. Three identical little girls, maybe 8 or 9 years old, stood on the sidewalk corner with a small cardboard sign reading, "Music for Hope." They wore matching but worn pink dresses, their long blonde hair braided neatly despite their obvious poverty. Then they began to sing. The melody floated through his partly open window, pure and haunting. James' blood turned to ice as recognition hit him like lightning. The song was Midnight Whispers, the lullaby Sarah had written during their happiest days together, humming it while she made breakfast or worked in her garden. She'd never written it down, never shared it with anyone except him. Yet here were 3 children singing her secret song, note for perfect note. James' hands shook on the steering wheel as he studied their faces more carefully. All 3 had the same bright blue eyes that had first captured his heart when he met Sarah 12 years ago. Eyes so unique that strangers used to stop her on the street to compliment them. The light turned green, but James couldn't move. Behind him, horns began honking, but he barely heard them. His mind raced with impossible thoughts as the 3 little girls continued singing the song that only Sarah should have known. Who were these children? And how did they know the melody that died with his wife 4 years ago? 3 sleepless nights passed before James could no longer resist the pull drawing him back to that street corner. He tried to convince himself it was just coincidence, that grief was making him see connections that weren't there. But every time he closed his eyes, he heard those 3 perfect voices singing Sarah's secret song. The downtown traffic was lighter on Thursday afternoon, as James parked his Corvette across from the same corner. He waited, heart pounding, until the familiar figures appeared around 3:30 p.m. The 3 identical girls took their usual position, the cardboard sign carefully placed at their feet. This time, James didn't hesitate. He crossed the street with determined steps, pulling a $20 bill from his wallet. "That was beautiful," he said gently, kneeling to their eye level. Up close, the resemblance to Sarah was even more striking. Not just the eyes, but the shape of their faces, the way they tilted their heads when curious. "Thank you, mister," said the girl in the middle, apparently the spokesperson. "I'm Emma. These are my sisters Lily and Rose. Triplets." James' breath caught as he noticed subtle differences. Emma had a small scar above her left eyebrow. Lily seemed shy, staying slightly behind her sisters. Rose clutched a small, battered music book to her chest. "That song you were singing," James managed. "Where did you learn it?" The three girls exchanged meaningful glances before Emma answered. Our Mama Sarah taught it to us when we were little. She said it was special just for us. James' knees nearly buckled. Your Mama Sarah? She had to go away, Lily whispered sadly. But Grandma Betty takes care of us now. Grandma Betty Thompson, Rose added, speaking for the first time. Her voice was soft but musical. She lives in the apartment building behind the church. She was Mama Sarah's friend. Emma studied James with uncomfortably sharp eyes. You look sad when we talk about Mama Sarah. Did you know her too? James handed them the 20, his hand shaking slightly. I might have. What did she look like? Pretty, Lily said immediately. She had hair like ours and the same blue eyes. And she smelled like vanilla and always sang to us. She was scared sometimes, Rose added quietly. She would cry when she thought we were sleeping. But she loved us very much. The pieces of an impossible puzzle began forming in James' mind. 3 girls who looked exactly like Sarah, a song only she knew, and a mysterious woman named Betty Thompson who cared for them after their mother went away. Girls, could I meet Grandma Betty sometime? Emma tilted her head, considering. Maybe. She's careful about strangers. But if you really knew Mama Sarah, she might want to meet you too. As the sisters gathered their things to leave, James felt destiny shifting around him like storm clouds gathering. Whatever impossible truth lay ahead, he was going to uncover it. Saturday afternoon found James nervously clutching a bag of groceries as he approached the weather department building behind St. Peter's Church. Emma had mentioned they lived in apartment 2B, and after 2 days of internal debate, James had decided to make an unplanned visit under the pretense of helping neighbors. Betty Thompson answered the door, a woman in her early 70s with kind but wary eyes. Her silver hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she wore the practical clothes of someone who'd spent decades caring for others. Mrs. Thompson, I'm James Richardson. I met Emma, Lily, and Rose downtown. They mentioned you might need some assistance. Betty's face tightened almost invisibly. Mr. Richardson. The girls mentioned a kind man who gave them money. She studied him carefully. Please come in. The small apartment was spotless but cramped. The 3 girls sat at a tiny kitchen table doing homework, their identical faces lighting up when they saw James. You came! Emma exclaimed, jumping up to hug him. The gesture was so natural, so trusting, that James felt his throat tighten. As Betty prepared tea with obvious nervous energy, James observed details that made his pulse race. Lily instinctively avoided the peanut butter crackers Betty offered, the same deadly allergy Sarah had suffered from. Rose unconsciously hummed while reading, the exact habit that used to drive Sarah's college roommates crazy. Emma had a birthmark on her wrist shaped like a crescent moon, identical to one Sarah bore in the same spot. Girls, show Mr. Richardson your music books, Betty suggested, clearly trying to redirect the conversation from the questions James kept asking about their mother. Rose proudly displayed a collection of handwritten sheet music. James' blood ran cold as he recognized Sarah's distinctive musical notation style. The way she drew her notes, her unique method of marking tempo changes. Mama Sarah wrote these, Rose explained proudly. She said music was the language of the heart, the exact phrase Sarah used to say during their late-night conversations about her composing dreams. Mr. Richardson, Betty interrupted sharply. Perhaps you should. She taught us this one before she went away, Lily said, moving to the old piano against the wall. Her small fingers found the keys with remarkable skill, playing a melody that stopped James' heart completely. It was the love song Sarah had composed for their wedding. She'd played it exactly once, on their honeymoon, saying it was too personal to ever perform publicly. Betty's face had gone pale. Lily, that's enough music for today. But Grandma Betty, Mr. Richardson looks like he knows this song too. Emma observed with unsettling perception. James stood abruptly, his mind reeling. 3 girls who shared Sarah's physical traits, her allergies, her musical gifts, and her most private compositions. A nervous caretaker who seemed to know more than she was revealing. And most impossible of all, children who would be exactly the right age if Sarah had been pregnant when she died. Mrs. Thompson, I need to ask you something directly, James said, his voice steady despite the chaos in his chest. Were you a nurse at Miami General Hospital 4 years ago? Betty's teacup rattled against its saucer. I think you should leave, Mr. Richardson. James looked at the 3 beautiful faces staring up at him with Sarah's eyes and made a decision that would change everything. I'll be back, he promised quietly. And next time, I'll have answers. As he walked to his car, James pulled out his phone and dialed the number for Miami's most reputable private investigation firm. Some mysteries demanded professional help to uncover. Detective Maria Santos had 20 years of experience finding missing persons, but James Richardson's case was unlike anything she'd encountered. Sitting across from the tormented businessman in her downtown office, she listened as he explained his impossible theory. Mr. Richardson, grief can create powerful illusions, Maria said gently, though her trained instincts told her to take this case seriously. But these details you've described, let me investigate properly. Maria started with Betty Thompson's background. Within hours, she'd uncovered crucial information that made James' suspicions seem less impossible. Betty Thompson had worked as a pediatric nurse at Miami General Hospital for 37 years before retiring in December 2020, exactly 1 month after Sarah's supposed death. Her personnel file showed she'd specialized in high-risk pregnancies and had access to birth certificate documentation. More intriguingly, Betty had taken emergency family leave 3 times between September and December 2020, claiming to care for a critically ill relative. The timing is suspicious, Maria reported during their second meeting. But the real breakthrough came when I accessed the medical records. She slid a folder across her desk. The triplets' birth certificates show they were born on October 15, 2020, to unknown parents and immediately placed in Betty Thompson's care through an emergency guardianship. No hospital records, no doctor's name, no prenatal care documentation. James' hands trembled as he processed the implications. October 15th. That's exactly 9 months after Sarah and I. We tried for a baby that spring. There's more, Maria continued. I managed to photograph the girls yesterday during their street performance. Look at these close-ups. The images showed details James had noticed, but not fully processed. Emma's crescent-shaped birthmark. Lily's slightly pointed left ear. A genetic trait Sarah had inherited from her grandmother. Rose's dimpled chin, identical to Sarah's baby photos. Mr. Richardson, I need you to understand the implications here. If these children are biologically yours, someone went to extraordinary lengths to hide their existence. We're talking about forged documents, falsified medical records, possibly even faked deaths. Faked deaths, James finished quietly. Maria nodded grimly. To confirm this theory, we need DNA evidence. I can collect samples discreetly during their public performances. But if you're right about what happened, we may be dealing with something much more dangerous than family secrets. What do you mean? Someone with access to hospital records and legal documentation helped create new identities for 3 children. Someone who wanted them to disappear completely from your life. The question is why? James stared at the photographs of 3 little girls who might be his daughters. Whatever the reason, Maria, I need to know the truth. If Sarah is alive, if these are your children, then someone has been lying to you for 4 years, Maria said. And people who orchestrate deceptions this elaborate usually have very dangerous reasons for doing so. Maria began packing her files. I'll have preliminary DNA results within 48 hours. But Mr. Richardson, prepare yourself. If I'm right about what we're uncovering, the truth may be more shocking than you can imagine. James left Maria's office with his world teetering on the edge of complete transformation. 3 little girls singing on a street corner might be the key to discovering that everything he thought he knew about loss, grief, and moving forward was built on an elaborate lie. James returned to Betty's apartment building on Tuesday evening, this time carrying bags from the local grocery store and a check that would cover 3 months of rent. He'd spent the previous day researching Betty Thompson's financial situation. A retired nurse living on a modest pension, struggling to care for 3 growing children. "Mr. Richardson," Betty said, opening the door with obvious reluctance. "I wasn't expecting you." "Mrs. Thompson, I know you're suspicious of my motives, but I genuinely want to help." No strings attached. The triplets rushed to greet him, their innocent joy a stark contrast to Betty's worried expression. Emma noticed the groceries immediately. "Are those for us?" she asked with the careful hope of a child who'd learned not to expect too much. "Fresh fruit, vegetables, and some treats," James confirmed, handing the bags to Lily and Rose. "And Mrs. Thompson, I'd like to help with expenses. These girls deserve the best care possible." Betty's composure cracked slightly. "Mr. Richardson, we can't accept charity." "It's not charity," James interrupted gently. "Consider it an investment in their future." As the girls unpacked groceries with excited chatter, Betty pulled James aside. Her hands shook as she spoke in hushed tones. "You ask too many questions about their mother," she whispered. "Some things are better left buried. Mrs. Thompson, I think I knew Sarah. I think I knew her very well." Betty's face went pale. "What did you say your last name was?" "Richardson. James Richardson." The reaction was immediate and terrifying. Betty gripped the kitchen counter for support, her breathing becoming rapid and shallow. "Oh my God," she whispered. She always said if something happened to her. If James ever found them. Found them? James' pulse raced. "Betty, what are you saying?" The elderly woman glanced at the triplets, still happily arranging groceries, then pulled James into the tiny bedroom. "She made me promise," Betty said, tears streaming down her face. "Sarah made me swear that if you ever came looking, I had to tell you the truth." "The truth about what?" "She didn't die in that car accident, James. She was running for her life and theirs." James felt the world tilt beneath his feet. "That's impossible. I identified her body. I buried her." "You buried someone else," Betty said shakily. "Sarah was 6 months pregnant when she came to me, terrified and beaten. She said someone was trying to kill both of you, that she had to disappear to protect the babies." "Babies? Plural?" "Triplets," Betty confirmed. "She gave birth right here in this apartment, too scared to go to any hospital. I delivered them myself, off the books. No records." James slumped against the wall. "Where is she now?" Betty's face crumpled. "I don't know. She left when the girls were 2 years old. Said she had to lead the danger away from them. I haven't heard from her since." From the kitchen came the sound of Emma calling. "Grandma Betty, Mr. Richardson, come see what Rose drew. She told me their father was a good man," Betty continued quietly. "Said James Richardson would love them more than life itself if he ever found them. But she also said powerful people wanted you both dead." James gripped Betty's shoulders gently. "Who, Betty? Who wanted us dead?" "She never said names, only that your business partner discovered something he shouldn't have, and that betrayal came from inside your own company." Through the thin walls, they could hear the triplets beginning to sing softly together. The same haunting melody that had first brought James to this moment of impossible truth. His wife was alive. These were his daughters. And somewhere, someone who tried to destroy his family 4 years ago might still be hunting them. Betty led James to an old wooden chest hidden beneath her bed, her hands trembling as she pulled out a small metal box. The triplets' voices continued their gentle singing from the kitchen, providing a bittersweet soundtrack to the revelation that would shatter James' understanding of everything. "Sarah left this for you," Betty whispered, pressing the box into James' hands. "She said if anything happened to her, if you ever found the girls, I should give you this." Inside the box, James found a letter written in Sarah's familiar handwriting, photographs of her pregnant with triplets, and a small recording device. "Read the letter first," Betty instructed, settling beside him on the narrow bed. James' hands shook as he unfolded the pages. "My dearest James, if you're reading this, Betty has kept her promise and you found our daughters, Emma, Lily, and Rose. The 3 miracles I never got to tell you about. I discovered Robert Martinez has been stealing millions from Richardson Industries. He's been using our overseas accounts to fund illegal weapon deals. When I found the evidence and tried to tell you, Robert cornered me in the parking garage. He told me he'd kill you if I said anything. When he realized I was pregnant, he said he'd kill all of us. That a family accident would be easier to explain than multiple murders. James, I had to choose between telling you the truth and keeping you alive. I chose your life." James looked up at Betty, his face pale. "Robert Martinez, my business partner for 8 years. She was 6 months pregnant when she came to me," Betty continued, bruised, terrified, begging me to help her disappear. "Robert had shown her photos of you leaving work, arriving home, meeting with clients. He was watching everything. The car accident. She staged it, used her medical knowledge, and my nursing contacts to create false records. A Jane Doe who died in the crash became Sarah Richardson in the system. Dental records were switched, fingerprints altered." James picked up the recording device with shaking hands. "What's this?" "Evidence." Robert didn't know Sarah was recording their conversations. She gathered proof of everything: the embezzlement, the threats, his connections to weapons smuggling. The kitchen fell silent, and Emma appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Richardson, you look sad. Did we do something wrong?" James quickly wiped his eyes. "No, sweetheart. Grandma Betty was just telling me stories about your mama." Rose and Lily joined their sister, all 3 studying James with Sarah's perceptive blue eyes. "She loved you very much," Lily said quietly. "She used to cry and say, 'I hope Daddy James understands why I had to go away.'" The words hit James like physical blows. "She called me Daddy James?" "Every night," Rose confirmed. "She said someday, when the bad man couldn't hurt us anymore, we'd all be together." Betty stood and moved to the window, scanning the street below with practiced wariness. "Mr. Richardson, if Robert Martinez is still alive, still free, then finding these girls puts them in terrible danger." James looked at his 3 daughters, because he no longer doubted that's what they were, and felt a protective fury unlike anything he'd ever experienced. "Then it's time to end this," he said grimly, clutching Sarah's evidence. "Robert Martinez destroyed my family once. He won't get the chance to do it again." Betty nodded approvingly. "Sarah said you were brave. Said when you finally learned the truth, you'd move heaven and earth to protect them." James stood, his resolve crystallizing. She was right. And tomorrow, Robert Martinez learns what happens when you threaten a father's children. James spent the night listening to Sarah's recordings, each revelation stoking his rage. Robert's voice, cold and calculating, discussing kill orders and money laundering as casually as quarterly reports. By dawn, James had a plan that would either bring justice or get him killed. He wore a wire provided by Maria Santos and walked into Martinez Industries at 9 a.m. sharp. The gleaming downtown Miami office felt like enemy territory now, every familiar detail tainted by betrayal. "James!" Robert Martinez stood from his mahogany desk, arms spread in welcome. At 45, Robert maintained the polished appearance of old money. Silver hair, expensive suit, politician's smile. To what do I owe this unexpected pleasure? Just thought we should catch up, James said, accepting Robert's handshake while fighting the urge to strangle him. It's been too long since we discussed the old days. Robert's eyes flickered with something that might have been suspicion. The old days? Which ones in particular? October 2020, right around the time Sarah died. The change in Robert was subtle, but unmistakable. His smile tightened, his posture shifted almost imperceptibly. Tragic accident. I still think about it sometimes. Do you? James moved to the window, looking down at the street where 3 little girls sometimes sang for money. Funny thing about tragedies, Robert. Sometimes they're not as tragic as they appear. What's that supposed to mean? James turned slowly, studying the man he'd trusted for 8 years. It means I know what you did. Robert laughed, but the sound was forced. James, grief can make people paranoid. Maybe you should consider therapy. I found them, Robert. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Robert's face went completely still. Found who? My daughters. All 3 of them. Emma, Lily, and Rose. Beautiful girls, aren't they? They have their mother's eyes. Robert moved behind his desk, his hand sliding toward the top drawer. I have no idea what you're talking about. Of course you do. You're the reason Sarah ran. You're the reason she faked her death and hid my children from me. James stepped closer. You threatened to kill us all over some stolen money. Stolen money? Robert's voice rose slightly. James, you're clearly having some kind of breakdown. $27 million, Robert. Funneled through our Cayman accounts to purchase illegal weapons. Sarah found your records. Robert's hand stopped moving. For a long moment, the 2 men stared at each other across the desk that had once symbolized their partnership. She always was too curious for her own good, Robert said finally, his mask slipping completely. Smart woman, your wife. Smarter than I gave her credit for. Smart enough to record your threats. Robert's laugh was genuinely amused now. And what good did that do her? She's been hiding like a rat for 4 years while I've lived in luxury. She's alive, Robert. Not for long, Robert snarled, his hand resuming its movement toward the drawer. And neither are those little girls, once I find them. James lunged forward, grabbing Robert's wrist before he could reach whatever weapon he'd hidden. You won't touch them. You always were too sentimental, James, Robert snarled, struggling against James' grip. That's why you never belonged in this business. Real success requires eliminating obstacles. Like my family, like anyone who threatens profit. The confession hung between them, recorded by the wire Maria had carefully concealed. James released Robert's wrist and stepped back. You're done, Robert. The FBI will have these recordings within the hour. Robert's face contorted with rage. You think this ends anything? I have connections you can't imagine. People who make problems disappear permanently. James smiled grimly. Then you'd better hope prison keeps you safe from me. Robert Martinez's arrest made headlines across Miami, but James barely noticed the media frenzy. His focus was entirely on 3 little girls who had spent their lives believing they were orphans, and an elderly woman who had sacrificed everything to keep them safe. The FBI agents who arrested Robert confirmed that Sarah's recordings provided overwhelming evidence of extortion, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder. Robert would spend the next 25 years in federal prison, but legal victory felt hollow compared to the delicate work of rebuilding a family torn apart by fear and deception. Girls, James said gently, kneeling in Betty's tiny living room where Emma, Lily, and Rose sat side by side on the worn couch. I need to tell you something important. Betty had insisted on being present for this conversation, her weathered hands clasped tightly in her lap. The man who scared your mama away can't hurt anyone anymore, James continued. He's in jail, and he's going to stay there for a very long time. Emma, ever the spokesperson, asked the question he'd been dreading. Does that mean Mama Sarah can come home now? James exchanged a meaningful look with Betty. They'd agreed to reveal his parentage gradually. But the search for Sarah remained their most painful uncertainty. We're looking for her, sweetheart. But in the meantime, I'd like to offer you girls a home. A real home, with bedrooms and a yard and, his voice caught, and a father who loves you more than anything in the world. Lily tilted her head curiously. You want to be our daddy. I want to be your family, James said carefully. If that's what you want too. Rose, the quietest of the three, surprised him by speaking first. Grandma Betty says you're a good man. She says Mama Sarah would want us to trust you. Betty cleared her throat. Girls, Mr. Richardson has asked the court to let him be your legal guardian. That means he'd take care of you. Make sure you have everything you need. But what about you, Grandma Betty? Emma asked, panic creeping into her voice. We can't leave you. You won't, James said quickly. I've bought a house in Coral Gables. It has a guest suite where Mrs. Thompson can live if she wants to. You'd all be together. Betty's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Richardson, I can't accept such generosity. You've raised my daughters for 4 years, James interrupted. You've been their grandmother, their protector, their everything. This family doesn't exist without you. 2 weeks later, the moving trucks arrived at the 3-story house James had purchased specifically for its multiple bedrooms and proximity to excellent schools. The girls each chose their own rooms. Emma wanted the one facing the garden. Lily preferred the corner room with windows on 2 walls, and Rose claimed the room closest to the music room James had specially designed. Betty settled into the first-floor suite with obvious relief and lingering disbelief at her change in circumstances. That first evening, as James tucked Emma into her new bed surrounded by boxes they hadn't yet unpacked, she looked up at him with Sarah's eyes. Daddy James, she said, testing the words, do you think Mama Sarah knows we're safe now? James kissed her forehead, his heart swelling with love he'd never expected to feel again. I think she's watching over us, sweetheart. And I think she's proud of how brave you girls have been. As he turned off the lights, Emma's sleepy voice followed him to the door. I'm glad you found us, Daddy James. So was he. Against all odds, he was a father. 3 months into their new life together, James marveled at how naturally the girls had adapted to their changed circumstances. The house buzzed with life he hadn't experienced since Sarah's supposed death. Laughter echoing from the kitchen where Betty taught the girls to bake, music drifting from Rose's practice sessions, and the constant chatter of 3 bright minds exploring their expanding world. Each girl's unique personality emerged more clearly in the safety of their permanent home. Emma proved to be a natural leader, organizing charity drives at her new school and convincing James to donate Christmas presents to children in their old neighborhood. Lily developed a passion for science, turning the basement into a laboratory where she conducted experiments that occasionally required fire department visits. Rose's musical talents blossomed under professional instruction, her compositions showing sophistication that reminded James painfully of Sarah. Daddy James. Rose called from the music room one Saturday morning. Come listen to this. James found her at the grand piano he'd purchased specifically for her use, her small fingers moving confidently across the keys. The melody she played was hauntingly familiar. Not one of Sarah's compositions, but something that carried echoes of her musical style. I dreamed this song, Rose explained seriously. Sometimes I dream about a lady with blue eyes who sings to me. She teaches me new melodies. Betty, who'd been dusting nearby, went very still. Rose, sweetheart, can you describe this lady? She has long hair like ours, and she wears a white dress. She's always smiling, but sometimes she looks sad too. She says she misses us very much. James felt his breath catch. Does she say anything else? She tells me to take care of Emma and Lily, and she says to tell you that she's trying to come home, but the path is very long and difficult. From the kitchen came Emma's voice calling, "Rose! Lily! Come help me make pancakes." As Rose ran off to join her sisters, Betty moved closer to James. "That's the third time this month she's mentioned dreams about Sarah," she whispered. "And each song she dreams sounds exactly like something Sarah would compose." Maria Santos arrived that afternoon with updates on their search for Sarah. She'd been working tirelessly, following paper trails and interviewing people who might have encountered a woman matching Sarah's description. "I found something promising," Maria announced, spreading photographs across James' desk. "A music teacher in Clearwater, about 3 hours from here. The local school principal describes her as remarkably talented, but extremely private. Look at this." The photo showed a woman from behind, teaching a children's choir. Her auburn hair was shorter and darker than Sarah's had been, but her posture and gestures were achingly familiar. "The woman calls herself Amy Davidson," Maria continued. "She appeared in Clearwater 2 years ago with perfect references that I suspect are fabricated. She lives alone, rarely socializes, and according to neighbors, sometimes cries while playing piano late at night." James studied the image, his heart racing. It could be her. "There's more." The principal mentioned that Amy has an unusual teaching method. She composes original lullabies for children who have trouble sleeping. Maria paused significantly. James, one of her students, hummed a melody for his mother that matches the tune Rose just played for us. Betty gasped. "She's staying connected to them through music, teaching other children the songs she can't sing to her own daughters." "That's because she's your mama," Betty said softly. "Mothers never stop worrying about their children." James studied Maria's reconnaissance photos of Sarah, noting the dark circles under her eyes, the way she held herself apart from other adults, the protective distance she maintained from the children she taught. "Tomorrow is Saturday," he said finally. The school principal mentioned that Amy volunteers at the community center, teaching piano to underprivileged kids. "What are you thinking?" Maria asked. James looked at his daughters, their eager faces, their desperate hope to reunite with a mother they barely remembered, but had never stopped loving. "I'm thinking it's time for Emma, Lily, and Rose to give an impromptu concert." Maria's eyes widened as she understood his plan. "James, that's incredibly risky." "She's been hiding from danger that no longer exists," James replied. "The only way to convince her it's safe to come home is to show her that her greatest treasures, her daughters, are safe, happy, and looking for her." Emma bounced excitedly. "We could sing. We could sing the song she taught us." "And if she runs?" Maria asked. James smiled, feeling hope bloom in his chest for the first time in 4 years. "Then we'll follow her as many times as it takes." I didn't find my family to lose them again. Saturday morning found the Clearwater Community Center bustling with families gathering for their monthly talent showcase. James and Maria positioned themselves strategically while Betty helped the triplets prepare backstage. The plan was delicate. Let Sarah discover the girls naturally, without feeling trapped or threatened. "She's here," Maria whispered, nodding toward the side entrance where Sarah had just arrived with her piano students. Even in a room full of people, she maintained her protective distance, choosing a seat near the exit. James' heart clenched as he watched his wife scan the room with the hypervigilance of someone who'd lived in fear too long. She looked fragile, like a wild animal ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. The showcase began with various local children performing songs and skits. Sarah smiled genuinely for the first time they'd seen, clearly in her element watching young talent develop. But her expression remained guarded, controlled. "And now," announced the community center director, "we have some visiting young ladies who'd like to share a special song with us. Please welcome Emma, Lily, and Rose." James held his breath as his daughters walked onto the small stage. In the audience, Sarah's attention sharpened immediately, Their identical appearances would catch anyone's eye. Emma stepped to the microphone with natural confidence. We'd like to dedicate this song to mothers everywhere, especially the ones who make sacrifices to keep their children safe. The opening notes of Midnight Whispers filled the community center, sung in perfect three-part harmony. Sarah's hand flew to her throat, her face going white as recognition struck. Lily's clear soprano carried the first verse, followed by Rose's alto weaving through the melody she'd perfected in her dreams. Emma's voice provided the harmonic foundation, exactly as Sarah had taught them during their earliest years. In the audience, Sarah rose shakily to her feet. Other parents noticed her distress, but she was oblivious to everything except the three voices singing the lullaby she'd composed for them. As the song reached its climax, Rose stepped forward for the final verse, one that hadn't existed in the original composition. "Mama, we've been wading through the darkness and the years. Daddy found us, kept us safe. Now come home and dry your tears." The words shattered Sarah's remaining composure. She moved toward the stage like someone in a trance, tears streaming down her face. "Emma," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Lily, Rose?" Emma broke away from the microphone and ran toward the edge of the stage. "Mama, it's really you." The community center erupted in confused murmurs as three little girls leaped from the stage into the arms of a woman who'd been introduced as their local music teacher. But Sarah caught them all, three precious daughters in her arms for the first time in 2 years. The reunion was pure magic, years of separation dissolving in an instant of overwhelming love. "My babies," Sarah sobbed, holding them close. "I've missed you so much." James approached slowly, giving his family space to reconnect. When Sarah finally looked up and saw him, her eyes filled with a mixture of joy, relief, and lingering fear. "James," she whispered, "is it really over? Is Robert in prison?" James confirmed gently. 25 years. "He can't hurt us anymore." Sarah's legs gave out from the emotional weight, and James caught her, holding his wife for the first time in 4 years. Around them, the community center had gone silent, witnesses to a reunion that transcended ordinary understanding. "I'm so sorry," Sarah whispered against his chest. "I'm sorry I had to leave, sorry I couldn't tell you about the girls, sorry for all the pain." "You protected them," James interrupted firmly. "You protected all of us. You're the bravest person I know." Emma tugged on Sarah's sleeve. "Mama, are you coming home now? We have a big house with a music room just for Rose, and Grandma Betty has her own apartment, and Daddy James makes the best pancakes." Sarah laughed through her tears. "Betty's there too? She never left us," Lily explained proudly. "She kept us safe until Daddy James found us singing your songs. Our songs brought us all together," Rose added with her characteristic quiet wisdom. 6 months later, the Richardson family hosted their first Christmas together in their Coral Gables home. The house sparkled with decorations, filled with laughter and the sound of Rose's piano playing carols while Emma and Lily sang along. Sarah stood in the kitchen beside Betty, watching James help their daughters hang ornaments on the massive tree. "I still can't believe this is real," Sarah admitted softly. "Love finds a way," Betty replied, squeezing her hand. "It always finds a way." That evening, as they tucked the girls into bed, Rose asked the question that had become their nightly ritual. "Will you sing to us, Mama and Daddy?" James and Sarah sat on the edge of Rose's bed, their voices blending in perfect harmony as they sang Midnight Whispers, the lullaby that had saved their family. The song that changed everything had brought them home. As the last notes faded, Emma whispered sleepily, "This is the best family ever." James looked at his wife, his daughters, and Betty, all safe, all together, all his to protect and love. After 4 years of grief and separation, they had found their way back to each other. Some stories end with loss. This one ended with love conquering fear, truth defeating deception, and a family reunited against impossible odds. The melody of their love would echo through generations, a testament to the power of never giving up hope.